The morning sun in Manila emerged timidly between the skyscrapers, painting the sky with golden and orange hues. Manny Pacquiao walked through the bustling streets of the Filipino capital, wearing a simple white t-shirt and black cap that barely disguised his globally recognized identity. Despite his worldwide fame, he maintained the habit of walking the streets on foot, connecting with the common people who had always been his inspiration. That Saturday morning, Manny had decided to leave home early for a reflective walk before training. The streets of Makati were beginning to wake up with a typical weekend movement, street vendors setting up their stalls, children playing in the alleys, and the unmistakable aroma of Filipino coffee mixed with the smell of meals in the air. The champion observed everything with the same curious eyes he had as a child on these very streets. His calloused hands, marked by years of intense training and memorable fights, swayed naturally at his sides as he absorbed the vibrant energy of the city. Manny always said that Manila was his temple, the place where he learned life's first lessons, long before he knew the glory of international rings. Every corner told a story, every familiar face awakened a memory. The few passers-by who recognized him waved with respect and affection, but kept their distance, knowing this was a personal moment for the national idol. Manny returned their greetings with his characteristic smile, the same one that had won hearts around the world. His genuine simplicity remained intact, even after all the conquests and recognition. The weight of his responsibilities as a public figure, former senator, and sports icon never prevented him from feeling at home on those streets. On the contrary, it was precisely in these moments that he remembered his humble origins and the purpose that had always guided him: to use his privileged position to inspire and help others. A gentle breeze carried the distant sound of traffic mixed with animated conversations from local residents. Manny breathed deeply, allowing the familiarity of that environment to fill his heart with gratitude. He knew that regardless of where his career took him, those streets would always be his true home. As he approached a bridge connecting two popular neighborhoods, Manny noticed the growing movement of people heading to the central market. They were honest workers, families in search of daily sustenance, university students, the vibrant mixture that formed the beating heart of the Philippines. And it was at that moment that something would completely capture his attention. Under the shadow of the concrete bridge, a solitary figure contrasted with the constant movement of the morning. A middle-aged man with disheveled gray hair and clothes worn by time sat on a piece of cardboard. His eyes, even from a distance, revealed a story of hardships, but also a silent dignity that immediately caught Manny's attention. The man held in his trembling hands an almost empty plastic cup, not actively begging for alms, but simply existing in that space with touching humility. His thin face showed the marks of time and weather, but there was something in his posture that suggested he hadn't always lived on the street. A certain elegance hidden in his gestures, even amid adversity. Manny slowed his pace, observing from afar. Decades of experience had taught him to read people quickly, an essential skill in both boxing and politics. There was something different about that man, something that transcended the obvious situation of need. Perhaps it was the way he organized his few belongings, or how he respectfully greeted the people who passed by. People rushed by in the morning, some casting quick glances at the homeless man, others completely ignoring him. Manny noticed how the man never seemed desperate or aggressive, never called out for help. He simply existed there, with a silent acceptance that seemed almost philosophical. This intrigued the former champion, who had always been drawn to stories of human resilience. The boxer remembered his own childhood, when his family also faced difficult periods. He remembered the nights when his mother divided the last plate of rice among the children, ensuring everyone ate something, even if she went hungry herself. These memories of poverty and struggle always connected him instantly with those who still fought for basic survival. The compassion that bloomed in his chest wasn't just superficial pity, but a deep recognition that fate could have been different for anyone. Manny had learned early that the difference between success and failure often depended on circumstances beyond individual control, a lesson he had never forgotten. He stopped completely, feeling that this encounter was not mere coincidence. Throughout his career, Manny had always believed in signs and meaningful moments. Something about that specific morning, that specific man, seemed to call for his attention. He felt an inexplicable pull to know more about this person's story. Manny approached slowly, his steps calculated and careful, not wanting to startle or embarrass the man. As he got closer, he noticed more details that intrigued him further. The man's hands, though dirty, showed signs of once being well cared for. Despite his current condition, there was an undeniable intelligence in his eyes that spoke of education and perhaps former professional success. The man looked up when he noticed Manny approaching. For a brief second, there was a flash of recognition, not of Manny's fame, but of something deeper, as if two souls were acknowledging each other's humanity. The homeless man respectfully bowed his head in greeting, a gesture that impressed Manny with its inherent dignity. In that moment, Manny felt a wave of emotion wash over him. He saw beyond the weathered appearance and recognized something painfully familiar, the look of someone who had fallen from grace but refused to lose hope entirely. This reminded him of fighters he had known who, despite repeated defeats, never stopped believing in the possibility of redemption. The former senator studied the man's few possessions arranged neatly beside him: a worn backpack, a water bottle, some books wrapped in plastic bags to protect them from rain. The presence of books particularly struck Manny, suggesting this wasn't just about poverty, but about someone who valued knowledge and education despite his circumstances. Manny's mind raced with questions. What had brought this clearly educated man to the streets? What series of events could lead someone from apparent success to this situation? These questions weren't born from curiosity alone, but from a genuine desire to understand and potentially help. His experiences in politics had taught him that behind every social statistic was a human story worth hearing. The city noises seemed to diminish around them, as if the universe was creating a sacred space for this encounter. Manny felt his heart swelling with the kind of passion that had driven him throughout his career. Not the passion for victory, but the passion for lifting others up. He remembered all the people who had believed in him when he had nothing, and how their faith had literally changed his life. Without fully understanding why, Manny knew that this moment would be significant. There was something about this man that transcended his current circumstances, something that whispered of untold stories and hidden potential. The champion's instinct told him that this meeting was destined to be more than a simple act of charity. Manny pulled out his wallet, but then paused, realizing that simply giving money wouldn't address what he felt this situation needed. His years of philanthropy had taught him that sometimes the most meaningful help went beyond immediate material needs. An inner voice told him that this man required a different kind of assistance. Instead of reaching for bills, Manny sat down on the sidewalk beside the man, an action that surprised the homeless individual and several passers-by. The future Hall of Famer had never been one to stand on ceremony or worry about his image when human connection was at stake. His simple gesture of sitting broke down the barriers between them more effectively than any words could have. The man looked at Manny with a mixture of surprise and gratitude. In that look, Manny saw layers of emotion: embarrassment for his current state, appreciation for the lack of judgment, and something that looked almost like relief, as if he had been waiting for someone to see him as more than just another homeless person on the street. Manny began by asking simple questions with genuine interest. He wanted to know the man's name, where he was from, if he was hungry. The conversation started slowly, with the homeless man clearly unaccustomed to anyone taking real interest in his story. But Manny's authentic warmth and patience gradually coaxed out responses. As they talked, Manny learned that the man's name was Eduardo, and that he had once been a university professor specializing in Philippine literature and history. Eduardo had fallen into homelessness after a series of personal and financial crises, including job loss, medical bills for his wife's cancer treatment, and eventually her death. The story was heartbreaking but told with a dignity that impressed Manny even more. Listening to Eduardo's story, Manny was struck by the man's continued intellectual curiosity and love for learning, evidenced by the books he carried and his articulate way of speaking. Here was someone who had contributed to society, who had educated young minds, now reduced to begging for survival. It was exactly the kind of situation that fueled Manny's passion for social justice. Without making any promises he couldn't keep, Manny found himself making a decision that would surprise even those closest to him. He didn't want to just help Eduardo temporarily. He wanted to find a way to restore the man's dignity and give him a chance to rebuild his life. The seed of an idea was already forming in his mind, one that would shock everyone who learned about it. Manny stood up, helping Eduardo to his feet, and without explanation, gestured for the man to follow him. Eduardo hesitated, uncertain about the renowned boxer's intentions, but something in Manny's eyes conveyed trustworthiness and genuine care. Together, they walked toward a nearby restaurant where Manny was known and welcomed. Inside the modest eatery, Manny ordered a substantial breakfast for both of them. As Eduardo ate, clearly having not had a proper meal in days, Manny began outlining an idea that had been forming in his mind. He explained that he was organizing a series of educational workshops for underprivileged youth in the city, focusing on Filipino history and culture. The former champion revealed that he had been searching for the right person to lead these workshops, someone with real knowledge and passion for the subject. Looking at Eduardo, he proposed something that stunned the homeless professor. Would Eduardo consider becoming the program coordinator? The position would provide a steady income, housing assistance, and the opportunity to do what he loved again, teaching. Eduardo's eyes filled with tears as he processed what Manny was offering. It wasn't charity in the traditional sense. It was an opportunity to contribute, to regain his purpose and dignity through meaningful work. The professor's emotional response was a mixture of disbelief, hope, and overwhelming gratitude for this unexpected second chance. Manny explained that he would arrange for temporary housing immediately, and that Eduardo could begin by developing the curriculum for the program. He wanted someone who understood both academic rigor and the struggles of the Filipino people, someone who could inspire young minds to appreciate their heritage while building their futures. The transformation in Eduardo was immediate and visible. The stooped posture began to straighten. The defeated look in his eyes gave way to a spark of renewed purpose. As they discussed details of the program, Eduardo's expertise and passion became increasingly evident, confirming Manny's instinct that this man was exactly what his educational initiative needed. What neither man fully realized yet was how this encounter would eventually reveal something extraordinary about Eduardo's past, something that would make this act of kindness even more meaningful and create a bond between them that would inspire countless others throughout the Philippines. Over the following weeks, as Eduardo settled into his new role and started developing the educational program, more details about his past began to emerge. Through conversations and background research, Manny learned that Eduardo wasn't just any professor. He had been one of the Philippines' most respected scholars, author of several acclaimed books on Philippine history and culture. Eduardo revealed that he had actually written extensively about Filipino boxing heroes, including a biographical essay about Manny's early career that had been published in an academic journal. He had followed Manny's rise to international fame with great pride, seeing him as a symbol of Filipino determination and excellence. This revelation created an even deeper connection between the two men. More surprisingly, Eduardo disclosed that he had been working on a comprehensive research project about the sociological impact of sports heroes in Philippine society. He had notebooks filled with analysis of how figures like Manny influenced national identity and youth aspirations. This work, he admitted, had been one of his motivations for continuing to live despite his hardships. As Eduardo began teaching the youth in Manny's program, his true gift became apparent to everyone involved. He had a unique ability to make Philippine history come alive, connecting past struggles with present opportunities in ways that resonated deeply with the young participants. His teaching style was engaging, passionate, and transformative. Manny observed Eduardo's impact on the students and realized he had discovered something precious. This wasn't just about helping a homeless man. He had found someone who could genuinely change lives through education. The students were not only learning facts about their country's history, but developing pride in their heritage and confidence in their potential. Word of the program's success began to spread throughout Manila's educational community. Other universities and organizations started reaching out, wanting to know about this innovative program and its remarkable coordinator. Eduardo's reputation in academic circles began to be restored as his colleagues learned about his current work. The most shocking revelation was yet to come. While organizing Eduardo's belongings from his street life, Manny discovered that among the professor's carefully protected books was an original manuscript, a novel that Eduardo had been writing about the forgotten heroes of Philippine independence. The manuscript showed extraordinary literary talent and historical insight. The manuscript discovery led to an even more surprising development. Manny, using his connections in media and publishing, arranged for literary experts to review Eduardo's work. The response was overwhelming. The novel was deemed a masterpiece that could significantly contribute to Philippine literature and historical understanding. Within months, Eduardo's novel was published to critical acclaim. The book told the untold stories of ordinary Filipinos who had played crucial roles in the country's fight for independence. Its success attracted national attention, not just for the quality of the writing, but for the extraordinary story of its author, the homeless professor whom Manny PACQUIAO had discovered. Eduardo's transformation became complete when he was offered a prestigious position at the University of the Philippines as a full professor and director of a new institute for Philippine cultural studies. The same academic community that had once forgotten him now celebrated his resilience and contributions. His story became an inspiration across the nation. The educational program that had started as a simple workshop had evolved into a nationally recognized model for cultural education. Eduardo's teaching methods were being studied and replicated in schools across the Philippines. Young people who had been disconnected from their heritage were discovering pride and purpose through the program. Manny realized that his simple act of compassion had created something far beyond what he had imagined. By seeing Eduardo's potential rather than just his circumstances, he had not only saved one man's life, but had created a ripple effect that was enriching the lives of countless young Filipinos. The media began covering the story extensively, not focusing on Manny's celebrity, but on the broader message about the value of every human being and the power of second chances. Eduardo insisted that any interviews include recognition of Manny's vision and kindness, but also emphasized the importance of society looking beyond surface appearances. As Eduardo settled into his new life, he established a foundation dedicated to helping homeless individuals with professional skills find pathways back to productive careers. The foundation, co-sponsored by Manny, became another lasting legacy of their chance encounter on that Manila street. Months later, at the launch event for Eduardo's foundation, both men reflected on how a single moment of human connection had transformed not just their lives, but the lives of countless others. Eduardo had become one of the Philippines' most celebrated cultural voices, while Manny had discovered a deeper purpose in his philanthropy. The Foundation's first major initiative was a program pairing homeless professionals with mentors and resources to help them rebuild their careers. Eduardo's story had proven that homelessness didn't erase competence, talent, or value. It simply obscured them temporarily. The program was already showing remarkable success rates in helping people reclaim their professional lives. Eduardo often spoke at events about his experience, emphasizing that Manny's greatest gift hadn't been money or even the job opportunity, but the dignity of being seen as a complete human being with value and potential. His speeches moved audiences to reconsider their own assumptions about homelessness and social worth. Manny, meanwhile, had learned something profound about leadership and impact. Through Eduardo, he understood that sometimes the greatest victories weren't won in rings or political arenas, but in quiet moments of human recognition and compassion. This experience had deepened his commitment to creating opportunities rather than just providing aid. The educational program continued to thrive, with Eduardo training other educators in his methods of connecting historical knowledge with personal empowerment. Students from the program were beginning to pursue higher education in unprecedented numbers, many specifically choosing to study Philippine history and culture. Years later, Eduardo would complete several more books, each one further cementing his reputation as one of the Philippines' most important contemporary cultural voices. His work inspired a new generation of scholars and patriots who saw their heritage as a source of strength rather than limitation. The story of Manny and Eduardo became legendary in the Philippines, not as a tale of celebrity charity, but as an example of how recognizing human dignity and potential could create transformative change. It reminded an entire nation that everyone has value, regardless of their circumstances, and that sometimes the people who can make the greatest difference are hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone to see beyond the surface. In the end, what had begun as a simple act of compassion had become a testament to the power of human connection, the importance of second chances, and the extraordinary potential that exists in every individual, regardless of their current situation. The impact of that morning encounter on a Manila street continued to ripple outward, touching lives and changing perspectives throughout the Philippines and beyond. If you like this kind of story, leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the next videos.